BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, and thanks for listening to the Farming Today podcast. I'm Kaz Graham, and in today's episode, concerns that a new offshore wind farm in the Firth of Forth will threaten tens of thousands of seabirds, including kittiwakes and gannets. And UK vets say it's time to ban farrowing crates, the restrictive pens that sows are kept in for up to 5 weeks when they give birth to piglets.
We're concerned that the crates are so small that they inhibit the sow's ability to perform natural behaviours, such as moving freely and turning around. And we're concerned that the crates prioritise piglet health over sow welfare.
We'll have more from the British Veterinary Association a little later. First, though, UK farmers could be missing out by not growing more pulses. We're discussing pulses, the dried seeds from plants like beans, lentils and peas, all this week. Most of the pulses we buy in the shops are grown overseas. They're a valuable source of protein, and there's a growing demand for protein-rich products from groups including runners, gym goers, as well as vegans. So, could UK farmers cash in here? Deltagen, a Somerset business, processes 3 types of pulse into either flour or protein concentrate, known as PC. Fiona Clampin donned a hairnet and overalls to meet Operations Director Nigel Davies, who gave her a tour of the factory in action.
So we stand here in front of our largest racking system, which holds 178 individual pallets. All raw materials for the plant are delivered to this point.
So we're looking at basically just tons and tons of beans.
So we've got 3 different versions of legumes. We have fava bean, we have chickpeas and red lentils. We order the legumes locally, sourced in the UK for fava bean. We have a contract in place for this year of 160 tonnes. We call them off after we've analysed and confirmed the pre-shipment sample is clean of any allergens or salmonella. Only when we are happy that it's clear of any allergens will we further process these beans for onward production. Right, so let me show you where we actually mill the raw material from the raw state of the legume into then the PC and the flour. We have a very large mill, I'd say 15 metres high. We mill approximately 2 tonnes an hour. The separation is 70% in favour of flour, 30% in favour of PC.
So there are kind of a bit like dumpy bags, which are waiting to receive.
Yeah. On this system, we have 3 tote bags, we call them. All the material, whether it's PC or flour, is automatically checked for metal content before it's bagged or sent forward to the robot for further bagging.
My name is David O'Leary. I'm the Managing Director of Deltagen UK.
Products that are leaving this factory, how will they end up on my plate?
So these products will be sold business to business to food manufacturers, where they utilise our plant protein ingredients as part of their food ingredient systems. So a finished formula then would result in something like a bakery product, sports nutrition product, or plant-based food product.
So some of these things are powders, some of them are flours. Yep.
Correct. All of what we make here are sold as ingredients, either flours or proteins, all as powdered ingredients.
When the machine makes that sound, what is that?
It's actually automatically filling a bag with 20 kilograms of flour.
We can't really see it. It's all kind of hermetically sealed.
Yeah, and it has to be from a micro control point of view. So we're actually standing at the robot. Above us is a 4.5 ton hopper that holds all the flour that's been produced next door. That hopper is feeding an automatic bagging machine, which actually disperses 20 kilograms into a brown 2-liner bag that is then sealed automatically, metal detected, and then packed automatically by the robot.
So we're seeing growth from the market, interest from the market as people are looking for alternatives to pea, rice and soy pulses that are available locally here, in the case of fava bean being sourced from the UK, processed here in the UK, and the consumer is open then for these types of alternatives, looking for nutritionally rich compounds that are easily processed, that are then highly nutrient dense and appropriate then for inclusion in food systems.
It's a brand new facility that we've been able to mould in our way. The challenges are daily, but from my point of view, it's just a fresh challenge every day, and it's a growing market, so it's quite exciting to be at the very start.
That's Nigel Davies with Fiona Clampin. Conservation groups in Scotland are urging ministers to reject plans for an offshore wind farm, which the developer predicts will kill tens of thousands of seabirds. 5 charities led by RSPB Scotland have written to the First Minister to argue that approving the Berwick Bank wind farm in the Firth of Forth would undermine efforts to protect nature. The energy company SSE says it's already amended its designs to minimise any potential risks to seabirds. BBC Scotland environment correspondent Kevin Keane reports.
Rising above the mouth of the Forth, the Bass Rock is home to 150,000 seabirds and the world's largest colony of northern gannets. But it's the kittiwakes that are at the highest risk of colliding with the 307 turbines.
So the Bass Rock is like a giant haven for all of these seabirds, and from here they head out to where the Berwick Bank wind farm is planned for their feeding. And what all of these organisations are saying is that building that wind farm puts them under threat.
The developer's own figures say 31,000 birds will be killed over the wind farm's lifetime. And Anne McCall, director of RSPB Scotland, believes there is an alternative.
So there are new proposals coming forward, one of which, the Ossian development, is almost the same size as Berwick Bank, but it uses floating turbines and it's further out to sea, and the predicted impacts from that are just far, far less than Berwick Bank.
Offshore wind is booming. Seagreen off Montrose in Angus was Scotland's biggest when it opened 18 months ago. Berwick Bank will generate 4 times as much power. The developer SSE says the UN has already warned the world could warm by a massive 3.1 Celsius this century without greater action. Developing a world-leading offshore wind industry with projects of the scale and ambition of Berwick Bank is a key part of combating the catastrophic consequences of that. But we live in one of the most nature-depleted countries in the world, and seabird numbers have fallen by about 70%. Dermot Hearn from the National Trust for Scotland says we can't pit climate against nature.
Given these populations under stress, they're not very productive. It takes years before a breeding pair actually produces a chick. So that chick dies, that's years again before there's another chick to take up the place. So for some of the species, it's going to be a very significant impact.
None of the letter's signatories are opposed to the principle of offshore wind, but they think the Forth is entirely the wrong place. The Scottish Government says it can't comment on a live consenting application.
And that report was from BBC Scotland environment correspondent Kevin Keane. The British Veterinary Association, the BVA, and the Pig Veterinary Society have issued a new joint statement calling for farrowing crates to be banned. Farrowing crates are the small pens that 60% of sows in the UK are kept in around the time that they give birth to ensure the safety of their piglets. Animal welfare campaigners have been saying they should be banned for years, but farmers have concerns that replacing them with alternative systems will not only endanger the lives of piglets, but also be costly and put them at a disadvantage to farmers in other countries where the crates aren't banned. I saw them in use a little earlier this year when I visited a specialist pig behaviour and welfare research unit at Scotland's Rural College near Edinburgh for our sister programme On Your Farm. Professor Rick Death showed me round. So this is what's called a farrowing crate. There's quite a narrow pen with metal bars, and this is where the sow would be when she has her piglets.
She would go in sort of 4 or 5 days before she's due, and then she would come out when the piglets are weaned at about day 28.
Rick, these are pretty controversial, aren't they? Because that is not a big space for a sow to live in for that length of time.
Yeah, these systems were developed to protect the piglets when the sow lies down. When they're very young, there's a risk that they could be crushed by the sow. That's what these bars are to achieve. They slow the movement of the sow as she lies down and stop her from just flopping down on the piglets.
Is there a move away from this in the commercial system?
I think the industry are kind of holding their breath, actually, to see how legislators are going to make decisions. The systems that will probably replace these are going to be a larger footprint. So maybe in a room like this, you might only get 4 in rather than the 6 that we've got in here. So that means that farmers have got to make major decisions about infrastructure, retrofitting buildings or putting in new facilities. that will be compliant with new legislation that they're expecting to come down the road. But we don't yet know what that's going to be.
That's Rick Death from Scotland's Rural College. Well, the BVA is now calling for farrowing crates to be phased out and for the government to clearly lay out a timescale for the transition. Anna Judson is the BVA's Senior Vice President.
We're concerned that the crates are so small that they inhibit the sow's ability to perform natural behaviours, such as moving freely and turning around. And we're concerned that the crates prioritise piglet health over sow welfare. Sows can have several litters a year, so there is a potential for sows to be kept in these systems for up to 80 days a year.
You know, farmers might say that they are only used for quite a specific period of time and that they're really for the welfare of the piglets, but also for the safety of the farmers who are working with those sows.
Absolutely. And we are highly aware that if there were to be, and we hope that's our vision and our policy, that there is a slow transition to either adaptable farrowing accommodation or zero confinement pens, which will improve the sow's welfare, that there is a sufficiently long transition period that the negative potential for some of those systems in increasing piglet mortality is counteracted by a lot of stock person training and understanding of how those new systems are used.
What would you replace the farrowing crate with? What are the alternatives?
Well, there's two main ones. One is to adapt the farrowing accommodation, and this is where sows are restrained just for a shorter period of time, usually up to a week. The other one is a zero confinement pen. There's a lot of research going into these to try and find the optimal system that helps producers maximise their productivity, makes them cost effective, but also ensures the health and safety and welfare of the sows and the piglets, but also crucially, stock person safety. We would also say a 15-year transition period allows for the necessary education and training. Interestingly enough, farmers in Denmark were quoted when they changed over that the sows are more fun to look after and it's positive for them to see the sow free to move around. So there are many benefits.
But pig farmers would have to make big changes because it would mean considerable expense for many indoor pig units. How do you expect them to pay for the changes that they'd need to make?
Well, we know that in countries that have moved over, when there is a reasonable length of time, which is why we're asking for this transition period to be for 15 years, is that by not asking farmers or businesses to do anything too quickly, the right changes at the right time with the right budget support, and we are also calling on government support to help with this transition, this will have a cost, and that we're certainly calling on the government funding to support these changes.
But these crates aren't currently banned in the EU, are they? Won't this put UK farmers at a commercial disadvantage?
Well, although it recently has been announced that the EU intends to pause progress towards a ban, it is clear that there will be a shift away from farrowing crates over the next decade. They've already been banned in certain countries like Sweden, Norway and Switzerland, and there are various other countries, including Germany and Austria, have committed to phasing them out in the coming months. I think what's absolutely important is that we know that this is the direction of travel, and we do need to make sure that there is some alignment there as well, so that our industry is not put at a serious disadvantage. But I think with the consumer interest in health and welfare of animals and the sourcing of their food, I think there will be gradually a push from consumers and retailers to head in this direction as well.
And how would you respond to concerns from animal welfare campaigners who would say the ban should come in before 15 years?
We would all like some things to be switched overnight. In the real world, we have to think pragmatically, how can that be done? And we think the right compromise is this 15-year time period. But what is clear is this must be done with farmers and not to farmers, in liaison with the veterinary profession, to ensure that we do things as smoothly as possible with a minimum of negative impacts.
Anna Judson from the British Veterinary Association. And if you've got any thoughts on that or anything else you hear in the programme, do please get in touch. Our email address is farming.today@bbc.co.uk, and on X we are at BBC Farming Today. And that's all from us for today. I'm Kaz Graham, the producer is Rebecca Rooney, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.